Hello and welcome to this edition of Eye on Africa. I'm Haxi Myers-Belkin. Thank you very much for joining us. Our headlines. As Nigeria gears up for elections next month, the government wants the country's top judge to be suspended pending the outcome of his fiercely disputed trial on corruption charges. Critics accusing the government of trying to influence the judiciary. As the Democratic Republic of Congo prepares for Felix Tshisekedi's inauguration, France 24's team in Kinshasa meets those voters hoping that a change in president will lead to a change in their economic fortunes. This in a country where the majority of people live below the poverty line. And Oliver Mtukudzi, Zimbabwe's most successful musician, has died aged 66 in Harare. Known affectionately as Tuku, Mtukudzi's career spanned 4 decades and saw him collaborate with some of the biggest names in the business. Hello again. We begin in Nigeria, where the government says it wants the country's top judge to step aside until he's either convicted or cleared of corruption. The trial of Chief Justice Walter Onnoghen began last week. He's charged on 6 counts relating to the non-declaration of foreign bank accounts. Some critics of the Nigerian government fear the case against Onnoghen may be politically motivated. Nicolas Germain has the story.
The trial of Nigeria's top judge Walter Onnoghen is a controversial issue in the country. His supporters protested outside the courthouse in the capital, Abuja. He faces 6 charges relating to the non-declaration of foreign currency bank accounts. If there is an election dispute in next month's presidential contest, Onnoghen would be the one to decide the final outcome. That's why the main opposition party, the PDP, accuses President Buhari of trying to remove him just before the poll. Onnoghen's lawyers said the trial would resume next week.
We were served with processes just yesterday night, about 8 p.m. I believe. Yes. And we have 2 days within which to reply. And the matter has been adjourned till Monday, the 28th of January.
The charges against the judge stem from allegations made by one of Buhari's allies. But his party, the APC, denied that its aim was to destabilize the judiciary. The 2 main contenders in February's poll are Buhari, who's 76 and who was elected in 2015, and the PDP candidate Atiku Abubakar, who's 72. He's a former vice president and a wealthy businessman. As tensions rise between the 2 parties, some analysts fear violence during and after the election. Others point out that there had been similar concerns before the 2015 poll, but that in the end it had been a peaceful process. The PDP candidate Goodluck Jonathan had swiftly recognized Buhari's victory.
There are lessons to be learned. The Zimbabwean government has responded to a damning report by the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission that accuses security forces of engaging in systematic torture during a crackdown on anti-government protests. Last week, at least 12 people were killed and hundreds arrested in what government critics see as a brutal attempt to silence dissent. Let's take a listen now to a spokesman for the Zimbabwean president.
It was quite a strong report against the methods that were used by law enforcement agencies. It was quite a strong report against the demonstrators who took the law into their own hands. But if it is dialogue that is predicated on violence, on coercion, that will not fly. The key thing for all parties, including those in opposition, to know is that there is a way of engaging government without necessarily having to bring in people to do lawlessness and destroy property.
Recent days have seen something of a war of words between France and Italy, with senior Italian politicians accusing France of impoverishing Africa and therefore contributing to the flow of migrants to Europe. Luigi Di Maio, Italy's deputy prime minister, has said that the CFA franc, used in 14 African countries and backed by the French treasury, is being used to manipulate economies across the continent. Our correspondents in Abidjan have been speaking to residents about their feelings towards their currency.
It's a debate that's rattled French-speaking Africa since its country started gaining independence. Some see it as a tool of neo-colonial control, others as a means for monetary stability. Here on the streets of Abidjan, everyone has a view on this currency union that's pegged to the euro.
€1 is 655 CFA francs. I think that's too much. If we could look at that, I mean lower the rate of the euro.
Here in West Africa, I think it works for us. It stabilizes the economy a bit in our countries.
France hinders everything. We can't develop anything for ourselves, not even our coffee. France does everything, and they should cut us a bit of slack.
Since President Alassane Ouattara came to power, the CFA franc has been consistently defended by the authorities. This economist shares the government's view and puts the CFA franc's ability to combat inflation at the top of its list of benefits.
We've had financial stability, which has let us get on with developing Ivory Coast.
While the country's private sector is concerned about the rate at which the currency is pegged to the euro, the CFA's comparative weakness should attract investors and traders to the region.
Stability and convertibility are huge advantages. As a currency, it's reasonably convertible, meaning that currency issues don't pose a problem to conducting business with Ivory Coast.
But approval for the CFA franc is far from unanimous. According to this former finance minister, the currency keeps prices artificially high, accentuating inequality among the countries in its union and damaging the competitiveness of Ivory Coast's businesses.
It's been proven by both the IMF and the World Bank that the member countries of the CFA franc zone have to pay more for imports and get less for their exports.
The debate over the CFA franc will have to continue, as it's here to stay. Despite the many criticisms levelled at the currency, the majority of the leaders of the countries which use it remain very much attached to it, fearful of the unfathomable consequences of going it alone.
When Felix Tshisekedi is sworn in as president of the Democratic Republic of Congo on Thursday, he'll become the leader of one of the world's poorest countries. The Congolese people say they voted for change, hoping first and foremost for an improvement in their standard of living. Gronya Harrington, Julie Dungelhoff and Abdallah Malkawi report from Kinshasa.
In the streets of the Lingwala quarter in Kinshasa, the workday begins at dawn and continues late into the night. These small businesses help people to make ends meet, but many here are barely surviving. It's the case for most people in this country. Jolie is 40 years old and a mother of one. She gets by selling vegetables, spices and cassava at her small shop. She sleeps on a mattress in the back room.
It's about enough to pay the rent, to eat, but that's all. Then there's electricity and water. It's not enough to buy clothes or any other little things.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the unemployment rate is said to be around 80%. But statistics are hard to verify in a country where the great majority works in the informal sector. Astrid is a qualified nurse, but she couldn't get a job, so she works in this pharmacy for $50 a month.
We ask the authorities, we ask our new president to find us jobs. There are qualified people with degrees, sitting at home because they don't have jobs. It's hard to get by every month. Sometimes you can't get anything to eat. You sleep hungry with your children.
In downtown Kinshasa, these two civil servants say they haven't been paid by the state for 14 months. They too are hoping for change from their new president.
During his campaign, he spoke to us about social issues. That's why I think he might be the one to come and save us.
During his campaign, Felix Tshisekedi pledged to eradicate poverty throughout this country. An ambitious promise, given that 3/4 of the population currently lives on little more than $1 a day.
And finally, Zimbabwe's music scene has lost one of its greats. Oliver Mtukudzi, the country's most successful musical export, has died aged 66 after a struggle with diabetes. The singer's career spanned an impressive 4 decades, during which he produced no fewer than 67 albums with countless collaborations with musicians from across Africa. Mtukudzi tended to steer clear of politics, preferring instead to write songs about everyday joys and struggles. He passed in the Zimbabwean capital on Wednesday. That sad news brings us to the end of this edition of Eye on Africa. We'll leave you with the 2001 track Wasakara by the late Oliver Mtukudzi.